Good morning, dear students. Welcome back after Diwali vacations. I hope you enjoyed the festival with your family members. You had fun, and I'm sure that you are following all the safety measures and taking care of yourself and your family too. Okay, so now let us come back to the studies. This is chapter 9, and I'm here with part 1 of chapter 9. Now, let me tell you what we are going to study in this part. In this part, we'll study some topics, and these topics are: the first one is accumulation of variation during reproduction. And then the second one is heredity. And here are the subtopics of this heredity topic. And these subtopics are inherited traits and then rules for the inheritance of traits. And then Mendel's contribution in this direction. Okay, so let me start here with. See, you know that reproductive processes give rise to new individuals, and those new individuals are similar, but they are subtly different. Somehow they are different from each other. Okay. And that also you know that some amount of variation is produced even during asexual reproduction, and the number of successful variations are maximized by the process of sexual reproduction. Okay. If you observe a field of sugarcane, what do you find? You find a very little variation among the individual plants. But in a number of animals, including human beings, which reproduce sexually, quite distinct variations are found. In this chapter, we shall be studying the mechanism by which variations are created and inherited. Okay, so we are starting now. Before starting the variations, let me tell you that long-term consequences of accumulation of variations. They are also an interesting point to be considered, but that we will be discussing in another topic, that will be evolution. Okay, so now let me start the first topic of the chapter, and that is accumulation of variation during reproduction. It is very interesting topic, and let me start it. Inheritance from the previous generation. Previous generation means our parents. So inheritance from the previous generation provides both a common basic body design and subtle change in it for the next generation. Whatever we are today, our personality, our character, that we have taken from our parents, they have provided it. Okay, and even some minute change also we have taken from then only. Now think about what will happen if this new generation in its turn reproduces from our parents. See, here is, this is the first generation, and now what will happen when this first generation will reproduce and we will get this new generation? The second generation will have differences that they inherit from the first generation, as well as newly created differences also. Here in this picture you can see that is first generation, and when this first generation reproduce, we get this next generation, or we can call it second generation. So they inherit some characteristics from their parent, and they have some newly created differences also. This figure shows the situation if a single individual reproduces as happens in asexual reproduction. Okay, see, in asexual reproduction, like bacteria, when bacteria divides and then the resultant two bacteria, they divide again, then four individual bacteria generated, and they would be very, very similar. There would be only very minor differences between them, and that is generated due to small inaccuracies in DNA copying. Okay, but sometime what happens? Okay, let me talk about sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is involved even greater diversity in the comparison of asexual reproduction. and this will be generated, as we'll see when we'll discuss the rules of inheritance. In the same session we'll discuss about that. Now let me explain this picture over here. In this picture, what do you see? See, in this picture, here the creation of diversity over succeeding generations. And how do you notice this? The original organism at the top, this is the original organism, okay? It will give rise to two individuals. For example, we are getting two individuals, this one and that one, okay? And see, these two individuals, they are similar in their body design, but they have minute differences. Here this minute difference is shown with the color, red color over here and the blue color, okay? And each of them in turn, they will give rise of two individual in the next generation. Here you can see this one and this one, okay? And now we are having four individuals. Each of the four individuals in the bottom row, they will be different from each other. While some of these differences will be unique and some will be inherited from their respective parents who were different at that time from each other. Now the question is, do all these variations in a species have equal chances of surviving in the environment in which they find themselves? The answer is obviously not. Depending on the nature of variations, different individuals would have different kind of advantages. Bacteria, if we take the example of bacteria, they can withstand with heat, okay, and they will definitely survive better in a heat wave. Selection of variants by environmental factors forms the basis for evolutionary processes. Now here are the questions that I have taken from your textbook. Let me read the questions from you. If a trait A exists in 10% of population of asexually reproducing species and trait B exists in 60% of the same population, then which trait is likely to have arisen earlier? The answer is trait B. It is more probable to arise earlier as this trait has already been existing and replicating in larger percentage of the population as compared to the trait A. Fine. Now the next question is, how does the creation of variations in a species promote survival? And answer is here before you. Answer is, genetic variations enable the species to better adapt to change in its environment. Moreover, we can say it is an important force in evolution as it allows the frequency to alleles to increase or decrease through natural selection. These variations will determine the difference between extinction or continuation of any species. Okay, now we'll come to the next topic, and that is heredity. Let me explain and then I will tell you the definition of heredity. The most obvious outcome of the reproductive process still remains the generations of individual of similar design. That is the general outcome of the reproduction. Okay, just to produce the next generation or to produce the new generation. The rules of heredity determine the process by which traits and characteristics are reliably inherited. Now let us take closer look at all these rules. What are inherited traits? Okay, let me explain that. At first tell me, what exactly do you mean by similarities and differences? We know that a child bears all the basic features of a human being. Child will be having two ears, two eyes, one nose, teeth, hair, two hands. Okay, these all are the basic features of a human being. So a child, whether it is a girl or it is a boy, that bears all these basic features. Okay. However, it doesn't look exactly like its parents. There is a minute difference in every child. They are same as their parent, okay? They are having all the basic features, but then also they are not 100%. Their look is not 100% as their parents have. All the human populations, they show a great deal of variations. Now it will be easy to us to define inherited traits and heredity. Inherited traits means the physical characteristic that is passed from parent to their babies. Okay, that is inherited traits. For example, color of eyes, color of hair, color of skin, that is the characteristic that is passed by parents to its next generation. Okay, whether the style of the hair will be curly or straight, that will be uh, that characteristic will also be transferred from parent to the child. So these all are inherited traits. Dimples, freckles, short, tall, even height is also inherited traits. Okay, and the passing of trait is called heredity. So this is the definition of heredity. Here it is. Okay. One activity is given in your book. Let me explain the activity. It says that observe the ears of all the students in your class, and then you prepare a list of the students having free or attached earlobes, and then calculate the percentage of the students having each. Each means free or attached earlobes. Now find out about the earlobes of the parents of each student in the class, and then correlate the earlobes type of each students with that of their parents. Based on this evidence, suggest a possible rule for inheritance of earlobe types. Here you can see in picture A, this earlobe is free. This is the earlobe. This portion of the ear that is free. Okay. While this is attached. Okay, this lowest part of the ear that is called earlobe. In some of us, it means in some of your friends or human being it is attached, but in some it is not. Okay. So these are two variants that is found in human populations. So in these terms, human beings vary from each other. See, all the human beings are having ears and everybody has two ears, but the structure of ear is different from person to person. So this is one example of variant that is found in human population. Fine. Now rules for the inheritance of traits, or these all are the Mendel's contribution that he did. George John Mendel, he was the scientist. Actually, he was a great scientist who contributed a lot in this field. The rules for inheritance of such trait in human being are related to the fact that both the father and the mother, they contribute practically equal amount of genetic material to the child. This is the basic rule of this inheritance. What does it mean? It means that each trait can be influenced by both parental DNA also and maternal DNA also. So for each trait there will be two versions in each child. And what will then the traits seen in the child will be? Mendel worked out, he said the main rules of such inheritance, and it is interesting to look at some of his experiments from more than a century ago. He did all these experiments century ago, but then also his work is valuable even today also. So we'll see some of his experiments. Two of his experiments we'll see over here. This is the first one. And Mendel used a number of contrasting visible characters of garden peas. What were those characteristics? Those were like round and wrinkle seeds, or tall or short plants, or white or violet flowers, and so on. Okay. So many contrast characters he has taken for his experiment. Then he took pea plants with different characteristics. And for example, here a tall plant and a short plant. In his experiment of a tall plant and a short plant, he produced progeny from them and then calculated the percentage of tall or short progeny. Now let me show you what was the result of. At the first place, see here in the picture you can see this is tall plant, okay, and this one is short plant that he has taken for his experiment. And this is first generation, uh, and here you will get all the plants are short. There is no, sorry, all the plants are tall. There is no short plants, there is no medium height plants. All the plants you see over here, they all are tall plants. What does it mean? It means only one of the parental trait was seen. See, one parent is short. If I see, this is one parent, this is another parent. These two parents have transferred their characteristic to the next generation. Okay, so only one parental trait can be seen over here, and that is the height. All the plants are tall. Even mixture of those two cannot be seen over here. So what is the next question? The next question is, were the tall plants in F1 generation exactly the same as the tall plants of the parent generation? See, these tall plants, just look at my pointer. All these plants are same as their parent. So are they same or not? Do they carry all the characteristics of their parent or not? See, Mendelian experiment tests this by getting both the parental plants and these F1 tall plants to reproduce by self-pollination. And after their self-pollination, you will get the answer of your question. Let me explain you again. These are the parents, tall and short. Okay, and here we will getting the next generation. And when this next generation will get self-pollinated, we get these tall, 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 again tall, tall, and this short. The 1/4 generation is showing that short characteristic. 1/4 generation. Okay. The progeny of the parental plants are of course at tall. They all are tall. However, the second generation or F2 generation we can call F1 tall plants are not at all tall. Here you can see all the plants are not all tall. 1/4 of them are short, and this short plant can be seen clearly. Here this is. So this indicates that both the tallness and shortness characteristic were inherited in F1 plants. Here these plants are having both the characteristics, but only this tallness could be seen over here, and this, when this generation is getting self-pollinated, the shortness character can be seen in next generation. Okay, so two copies of the trait are inherited in each sexually reproducing organisms. These two may be identical or may be different depending on the parentage. A pattern of inheritance can be worked out with this assumption that you can see in the figure. This figure shows Mendel's experiment. Now in this explanation, let me make it short and clear to you. Both TT and capital T and small t are tall plants. Okay, here we can see this, they all are tall plants. Okay, only this TT is short plants. In other words, you can say that a single copy of capital T is enough to make the plant tall, while Both copies have to be small t for the plant to be short. What does it mean? It means the trait like capital T are called dominant traits. Why? Because it doesn't need other one. Okay, single copy of this T is enough to make the plant tall. On the other hand, the small t called recessive traits. So these dominant traits and recessive traits play very important role in deciding the gender of human child, that we will discuss in the same session. Sorry, that we will discuss in next session. Okay, now what happens when pea plant showing two different characteristics, and when these two plants breed with each other, what will be the result? What do the progeny of a tall plant with round seed? See, look at these characters carefully. The plant is tall, but the seeds are round. Okay, when this will pollinate with a short plant but wrinkle seeds. So what will be the progeny? They all are tall and they have round seeds. So tallness and round seeds are dominant traits. But what happens when these F1 progeny are used to generate F2 progeny by self-pollination? Again, the same step we are going to do over. So again, the experiment will find that some F2 progeny are tall plants with round seeds, while some were short plants with wrinkle seeds. But the short plants with wrinkle seeds is 1/4 part only. Okay. However, there would also some F2 progeny that showed totally new mixtures. Some of them would be tall but have a wrinkled seed, and others would be short but have round seeds. Thus, tall and short trait and round seed and wrinkle seed trait, they are independently inherited from the previous generation to the next generation. Fine. And here is the picture where you can see the dominant trait and recessive trait. See, this is round and green pea. Here you will get wrinkled and yellow pea. Okay. And in next generation, you will get round and yellow. This is F1 generation. And when this F1 generation will get self-pollinated, here are the characteristics that we get. And you can see here they have taken example of 556 seeds. Out of that, 315 are round and yellow, 108 peas are round but green, and 101 peas are wrinkled but yellow, and only 32 peas are wrinkled and green. Okay, so these are independent inheritance of two separate traits, shape or colors of seed. So this much was there in their session. It was something new. I think it was something new for you, but it was interesting. And thank you, students. Now we'll be meeting in part 2.